Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Change Leadership Wednesday, this week with Kirsi Sahlstén. Hey Kirsi, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, thanks.
So Wednesday is of course Change Day here on the podcast, and we want to explore what are some of the things that actually work when trying to lead change in our organization. So Kirsi, we want to ask you to tell us a story of a change process you were involved with, and as you go through the steps, from beginning to end, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
All right. I will actually go maybe back to the case when I talked about the failure that I learned something from, because that's also an interesting change management or change leadership story. So if I continue from the failure onwards.
So listen to the Monday episode so that you know the first part of this story, and now the second part. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, I was coaching an organization with consisting about of 120 people, and they were reorganizing their team structure because they had some challenges earlier. And their goal was to reorganize kind of along the customer journey into 8 DevOps teams and then 4 enabling teams. And these plans were created together with the product owners and the business lead of the organization. So they're kind of set up on what to base the teams on. That was made with them. But then who to be in which team, that was kind of open. So we decided to establish a change team that had representatives from the organization from different roles. And then we also set up a kind of change agent network that had a representative from each of the earlier teams, so the old team structure. And they were then the kind of eyes and ears and shoulders to lean on within the teams. And what kind of worked in this change process was that we actually had the change team, so the representatives from the organization. We were working in kind of a sprint mode. We had a Kanban board, which was openly available to everybody in the organization, and we had dailies, and then we had a weekly call for everybody, where we also had a change pulse, so a short survey where we could get the kind of feeling on how confident people are that we will end up with a team structure that is better than the earlier one, that will diminish the dependencies to as little as possible and have the right team size for efficient teamwork and be more customer focused and so on. So that was a good thing to have the pulse and then react to that. And
how did you do the survey? Was it like sent out via email to the whole organization every week? How did you run that survey?
Yeah, it was actually just a poll during the weekly call. So we had a weekly call in Teams, and during that call we put out the poll. So people didn't have to find out
kind of direct voting time during the call, right?
Direct vote, exactly, direct voting, and then the results were shown immediately as well to everybody. So we could also discuss the results if there were any concerns or anything like that. Then when we started to think about the team composition, so who would be in which team, what kind of competencies do we need in which team, and what kind of roles do we need, and then there was the other side of the coin, so who wants to be in which team, who is interested and motivated and wants to develop in which area, and so on. So to match that, we actually sent out a questionnaire to the team members. We would have done this in a big auditorium with everybody like on place and then, discussing, but we had the challenge that half of the people were actually on another continent, so we had to work virtually. So we sent out a questionnaire on team placement, so people were able to speak out their wishes on what they would want to focus on, what they thought that their competencies would match the best, and then there were a few people who kind of did the puzzle of what is needed and what the people want, and tried to match those and actually build the team composition based on that. And it was actually then, it was a lot of work, but if I remember correctly, it was like almost 90% of the people we were able to put into a team that they had wished for as their first or second option. And then we got the initial structure out, and then there was still some discussions on who is where and how do we match the competencies and all of that.
And how did you manage that, like, let's call it that second level discussion after placing most of the team members? Was it kind of a sequence of sessions where you discussed with the different team members, or how did that go?
Yeah, it was mostly one-on-one discussions then. But there weren't really that many because people were kind of quite happy. So the puzzle was made pretty well, I guess. It was successful enough in the first round. So the second round was more like a few individuals and juggling that and adjusting. And then we also agreed that we will start with this, try it out, and then see if there is still in practice, when we actually work in practice in that structure, whether there is any need to move somebody, then obviously we would still be able to do that. But basically we started with that, and we started with a common cadence just to have the team kickoffs and support the teams in the same cadence, but then they figured out their own cadences after that. But all of the teams, so there were 12, me and my colleague, we supported them with team kickoffs where they made the team agreements and started to get to know each other and agreed on the practices and talked about their values and principles and ways of working and kind of all things needed to have a good start. And then they had a set of workshops with a business lead and the customer experience lead on the goals, on the business goals, customer needs, and the KPIs and all of that. And then they also had a kind of baseline DevOps maturity evaluation for their own purposes, so that they could then compare to the baseline after a certain period, after a few months.
And that's a really great idea to support new teams, because it's not only supporting the kickoff, which is critical, of course, but also giving them kind of a barometer so that they can self-reflect and improve themselves.
Yeah. But that was a very intense period of time. It was half a year that we actually pushed this through. And since then, I still continued working with them. I think it was a half a year, something like that after that. And then my colleague has been working with them since. And I was curious enough that I asked my colleague about the metrics, the DevOps metrics that they use, that what is the situation now? And it was so great to see that all of the measures have been improving. So they have succeeded. That's awesome.
Great story and lots of actionable tips here. So thank you very much for sharing all of that, Kirsi.
Thank you, Esko.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, On Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role, we'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.